We're joined now live from Frankfurt by Standard & Poor's Moritz Kraemer. Mr. Kraemer, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
If I could just begin by starting with sterling. Fitch brought out some comments this morning, and sterling has fallen sharply on the back of that. What is your take on the UK's economy at the moment?
Well, we have put the UK sovereign rating on the negative outlook from the AAA level over a year ago, anticipating the huge fiscal challenges that are in the wings for the government to consolidate the public finances and contain the increase in public debt. Now, clearly, there was a period where not much happened because it was a pre-electoral time. But now, of course, the new coalition government has begun to actually to start to chip off the deficit. But if you look at the 6 billion savings and consolidation effort that was announced recently, much more needs to be done, considering that the deficit is actually in excess of 150 billion. And it's not all cyclical at all. There's a lot of structural deficit as well. So much more work is ahead. And we will continue to monitor the situation closely and assess, as we get the new information of the government plans, whether a AAA rating is still consistent with the fiscal profile of the UK.
David Cameron said that it was worse than he expected. When he got a chance to look at the books, it was even worse. Do you suspect that the austerity cuts that Britain will have to face will be amongst the toughest in Europe?
Well, I think it will be very tough. The UK has one of the highest budget deficits. It was the unfortunate situation that the UK went into this crisis with a very weak fiscal position to begin with. That David Cameron says that the situation is worse is kind of not uncommon for incoming governments. They're setting the scene for some of the austerity that is coming up and that they have to sell to the population and the taxpayers.
So your outlook is negative. Will you be waiting for the 22nd of June and the George Osborne's budget before you make any decision on that AAA rating?
Well, I could obviously not publicly speculate on when we would do what, but clearly the budget that is upcoming is a very important piece of information that we will be analysing very closely and scrutinising and discussing with the government.
Now, if I move on to other European countries, we're seeing a kind of austerity across the board, with many cutting their deficits. Do you feel, in general, that these measures are going far enough?
No, of course they're not going far enough. I mean, that's pretty obvious, and that's I don't think any controversy about that subject, because what we're talking about now are short-term measures which help to reduce the deficit to reach the targets that the government committed themselves to towards the European partners and the European Commission this year. But if we look at a country like Greece or Spain, even if they achieve their deficit reduction targets this year, the deficit would still be in the realm of 8–9% of GDP, something like around that number, which is still very unsustainable. So this is the first step in a pretty long and probably rather painful process.
Just talking about the pain of this process, we're already seeing, obviously, strikes in Greece, now in Spain as well. Clearly, it must be very important to bring the public on board. Do you think that that is something that markets are looking for?
Well, clearly, if you have a political environment where you can implement these measures relatively swiftly and without friction, that's a benefit. And we have seen that in several countries, like in the Baltics, for example, which have gone through even greater lengths to consolidate their budgets. But they're very different political systems. I think no one should be surprised if we see strikes and general strikes and a lot of fierce rhetoric, because this package and the further steps that need to be taken will obviously affect a large swath of the population, if not everyone. And people will lose benefits, people will be taxed higher. Clearly there will be opposition, and the popularity of the government is not going to benefit from it. If you look at what happened in Ireland, for example, the government has gone very far in its consolidation effort since last year, and its popularity is extremely low. This is part and parcel of this process. So it all boils down to the question whether the governments can actually muster the political will to face that storm.
Mr. Kraemer, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much.